So now that we've wrapped up nixtamalization and rinsing, the next step is to grind. And I mean, each of these steps is equally important, but this is definitely the one that I think tends to trip up most people because historically there's never been a mill that's available at home for kind of a countertop use. The average mill size is like larger than this table. Historically speaking, they're meant for factory production. People weren't expecting people to do this at home. So the exciting thing is that we now have the tools available to really make a really high quality masa at home. For grinding today, we're going to be working with really one of the most exciting things that I think has happened in food. This is Molinito. This is a 1 horsepower tabletop mill, which is the first of its kind. Key to this mill is that it's using volcanic stones. And volcanic stone has been used throughout history for the purposes of grinding down grains and pulses. This mill is really kind of the evolution of metate, which is the classic sort of forearm-driven, very manual grinding surface of basalt with a kind of a basalt rod. You'll notice this is the same material, and what's different about it is that it's been carved with a pattern on the front. So it goes from kind of a more coarse grind from the center to kind of break it down, and out at the ends comes sort of a more smooth finished masa. This is a really important tool in the step because what it does is it not only cuts the corn that we've taken and nixtamalized and softened, it's also mashing it, kneading it, and mixing it. So you get a lot of use and utility out of this surface, believe it or not, compared to something like this, a hand-cranked mill made of metal. And really all this does is cut the corn. So Molinito, by contrast, it's so much utility out of one machine, and the finished product it's light years away from anything you're ever going to get from anything else. The way these stones work is that you have one stationary stone and another one is spinning against it. These two patterns are matched facing each other. So as the stones pick up speed, over time, they're going to get a lot of friction and a lot of heat. So I have this bathing in ice water, which ensures that you're cooling it down before it gets to that point. So now that these have been soaking for 10 minutes, I'm going to load these directly into Molinito. I have 2 pins here that are fastening this front hopper. So I'm just going to remove them carefully. Yep. All right. And there's nothing inside right now. Each set of stones should have holes in the back that should match to the contours of these rods that are sticking out from the turning plate and from the front hopper. So I'm going to stick this in, make sure it's matching, and be careful as you're setting it in not to drag it too much on the auger so it doesn't break. I think it's a little bit easier for the stone that's on the front to kind of mount it directly into these 2 rods that are coming off of the front hopper plate. Hold that in, get your bearings on it, and just slide the whole thing in together, guiding the stone gently so it doesn't make too much friction on that auger. Once that's secure, I'm going to hold it in place with the 2 fixing rods we used earlier. And Molinito's ready to go. In the back of Molinito, we have a tightening knob that's going to control how close the stones are together. Obviously, the closer stones are together, the finer the masa is going to be that comes off. The farther away they are from each other, the coarser it's going to be. We're doing a table tortilla today, which means we're going for a really fine grind. In this case, like as close as the stones can get together without shutting the machine off, which is really kind of a dance to the point where you feel you're dialed in. It might take a couple minutes to really understand how the machine feels. I'm just going to give it a little squirt of water. We just made this in 2 seconds. It's just a recycled water bottle that we pinned a hole into the size of about, I don't know, an 1/8 inch of a nail or whatever feels good for the right flow for you. I'm going to be constantly making sure that the stones are being fed with water and nixtamal. If there's nothing going in between those stones, you're going to get an enormous amount of friction that's not only going to wear down your stones faster, but it's going to cause any masa that does come off, if there's any left over, to be kind of burnt, usually a little bit gray, off color, gummy. So constantly the goal here as we set this machine on is to make sure that you are getting enough nixtamal and water evenly sort of distributed so that the masa that's coming off is aromatic. It smells like a finished tortilla. It feels wet but not too sticky. And certainly you want to make sure that it's sort of workable in your fingers with that particle size that we're looking for. So I'm going to transfer just a little bit of that rinsed nixtamal over here. I've already got a pile going. This is probably about, I don't know, 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds worth that we're working with at a time. You don't want to overwhelm the hopper. So I'm going to do just 1 or 2 pulses just to make sure it's pulling some of that, some of the nixtamal into the auger, into the cavity of the stones. And then from there, we'll be able to use the tightening knob to calibrate and dial into what we're looking for. So I'm going to engage our stone clutch lever here. It's now caused the stones to move closer together as I do that. And I'm gonna press the on button, just pulse it a couple times. We now have a little bit of nixtamal building up so that the stones aren't directly pressing each other. And you can see we're looking for rapid moving snowflakes, and already we're off to a good start. We've got some snowflakes that are coming off of this. As I kind of rub the masa between my fingers, I'm not feeling any particles in it. We're actually pretty close to go. So I wanna now just start getting into a rhythm. And again, as we're going through this, we can use the tightening knob to get to a finer masa or a coarser masa, but we gotta start with at least having something between these stones. All right, so as I'm getting started, just again, make sure you have your water bottle in your hand or your trickle ready to go, your spatula in your other hand. You wanna be really careful that you're not sticking your fingers directly in here. I know a lot of professionals you might see in a tortilleria are just like reaching for it. I would not recommend it. You wanna be really safe. These can be dangerous, but just use safety as you're doing this and making sure you're using a spatula and not making direct contact with this area in here when the machine is on. All right, let's get started. As the masa is coming off, we're looking for texture. Again, making sure that for a table tortilla, there's really no particles detectable between your fingers as you rub the masa between your fingers. We're paying attention to the smell, the aroma. It should smell like something homey, fragrant, like the makings of a really delicious tortilla, which is what we're doing today. In addition to that, you want to take a look at the color, make sure that you're not getting kind of bits of this gray volcanic rock into the masa. That sometimes happens if the stones are too close together or you're not paying attention to how much nixtamal is passing through those stones at any given time. And at this point, it should feel warm in your hands. So, these stones, like I mentioned, they're moving really fast, or one is moving really fast against the stationary stone. It's creating a lot of friction, and as it does, the temperature of the masa that's coming off really should be between about 40 degrees and 60 degrees Celsius, depending on how close those stones are together. This is definitely warm to touch, and that's what you want. This was not hot corn to start with. It's getting hotter as it's working off of the stones into masa. So as soon as I'm done with collecting the masa, I'm gonna clean this out. Before I remove the pins, I just wanna make sure that that stone clutch lever is disengaged. It's currently putting a lot of pressure on the stone, so I wanna make it easier for me to remove the pins. Less pressure will make that just a little bit easier for you to do. I'm also gonna unplug the machine to make sure no accidents happen. I'm gonna remove the fixing pins from both sides of this. Be very careful as I pull out the front hopper plate to make sure that the stone that's fixed on it isn't dragging too much on the auger. Remove the stones and just rinse the stones really kind of just with a brush. You don't wanna add any soap to it. And I'm gonna leave it so that it dries before I load it back in next time.